Bronson Reed saves Jacob Fatu. Roman Reigns shocked on SmackDown. Jacob Fatu rescued in chaos. Massive SmackDown twist unfolds. Bronson Reed confronts Reigns. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. What if the whole night wasn't really about Roman Reigns trying to dominate SmackDown, but about someone finally stepping in to stop the balance from tipping completely out of control? And what if Bronson Reed didn't just interrupt the moment, but actually changed the entire direction of Jacob Fatu's future in WWE without anyone realizing it yet? Because that's the part nobody is talking about loudly enough yet. Why did everything shift so fast the second Bronson Reed showed up? So picture this. SmackDown is already tense before anything even happens. You can feel it in the crowd, that low buzzing energy like something bad is about to go down. And when Roman Reigns finally appears, that energy just changes completely. Roman Reigns doesn't walk out like a man coming to compete. He walks out like he owns the place. Like the ring, the arena, the entire conversation belongs to him before anyone else even speaks. And honestly, at this point in WWE history, you can't even argue with the aura. Love him or hate him, the man turns every segment into a power struggle. But tonight, there was something different. Because standing on the other side of this storm is a man who doesn't flinch easily. Jacob Fatu. And if you know anything about Jacob Fatu, you know he doesn't come to SmackDown to be anyone's background character. He comes in like a walking disaster zone. The kind of guy who doesn't need to speak much because his actions usually do the talking for him. So when these two are even in the same orbit, you already know it's not going to stay calm for long. Now here's where it starts to spiral. The initial confrontation doesn't feel like a normal segment. It feels like two forces that have been circling each other finally realizing there's no more distance left to hide behind. Roman's presence is heavy, calculated. Jacob's energy is unpredictable, almost like he's 1 second away from snapping just because the air feels disrespectful. And the crowd? They're just waiting for the first spark. Because everyone knows once that spark hits, it's not going to be a back and forth. It's going to be damage control. Roman starts pushing that psychological edge like he always does. He doesn't rush. He doesn't panic. He talks like a man who's already seen how this ends. That calm confidence that somehow feels more dangerous than shouting ever could. And Jacob? He doesn't respond the way most people would. No hesitation. No backing up. Just that stare. That say it again and see what happens kind of energy. You know the one. And right there, you can feel it building. Something is about to break. Now here's where things take a turn nobody really expected. Because before this can fully explode into chaos, before Roman can really press down and assert control the way he usually does, the entire rhythm gets interrupted. And not by someone you would immediately predict. Bronson Reed walks in. And the crowd reaction alone tells you everything. It's not just surprise. It's confusion mixed with anticipation mixed with wait, what is he doing here right now? Because Bronson Reed doesn't move like someone who's just passing through. He moves like someone who came with a decision already made. And that decision? It becomes clear fast. Jacob Fatu is suddenly not standing alone anymore. And that alone changes the temperature of the entire arena. Now let's be real for a second. In wrestling, alliances form all the time. But this doesn't feel like a handshake agreement backstage. This feels like someone stepping into a fire they didn't have to step into. Roman Reigns turns his attention, and you can see that shift in his expression. That slight pause that says, "This wasn't in my script." And if there's one thing Roman doesn't like, it's variables he didn't account for. He starts to assess the situation. Not rushing. Not reacting emotionally. Just calculating. Because now it's not just Jacob Fatu anymore. Now it's Jacob Fatu and Bronson Reed standing in front of him. And that changes the math completely. The tension rises again. The crowd is fully locked in now. Phones are up. People are standing. This is the kind of moment where you don't even blink because you feel like you might miss something that becomes important later. And then it happens. The physicality breaks loose. It's not clean. It's not structured. It's not pretty. It's exactly what you would expect when three power-driven superstars collide with no real respect for restraint in the moment. Roman tries to impose control the way he always does, but Jacob Fatu is not the kind of man you can just push around and expect compliance. Every exchange feels like a fight for territory. Every second feels like someone is trying to prove they belong at the top of something bigger than just one match. And Bronson Reed? That's where things get even more interesting. Because he's not just standing there watching. He's actively involved. Not chaotic, but intentional. Like every move he makes is aimed at one thing: keeping Jacob Fatu from getting overwhelmed by Roman Reigns' momentum. And that's when the word protect starts to actually make sense. Because this doesn't feel like random interference. It feels like a shield being placed at the exact right moment every time Roman starts to tilt the situation in his favor. Now the question hits the audience in real time. Why is Bronson Reed doing this? What is the endgame here? Is this respect? Is this strategy? Is this survival? Or is it something much bigger that hasn't been revealed yet? Roman Reigns starts to show the first signs of irritation. Not panic, and Jacob Fatu? He's feeding off the chaos. That's the thing about him. The more unstable the situation becomes, the more dangerous he gets. It's like the disorder actually sharpens his focus instead of breaking it. At this point, the ring doesn't feel like a battleground anymore. It feels like a pressure cooker. And Bronson Reed is right in the middle of it. Now let's talk about the moment that really flipped everything. There's a point where Roman Reigns finally tries to isolate Jacob Fatu. That classic move. Separate, control, dismantle. It's what he does better than almost anyone. He doesn't just fight people, he breaks their structure. But every time that structure starts forming, Bronson Reed is there. Not letting it fully settle. Not letting it fully succeed. And that's when the crowd starts realizing this isn't random anymore. This is a pattern. And patterns in WWE usually mean one thing: intention. Some fans start cheering. Some start booing. Some are just confused. And honestly, that confusion is part of the magic here. Because nobody in the arena is fully sure if they're watching the start of an alliance, or the early stages of a betrayal that hasn't revealed itself yet. Backstage cameras probably don't even know where to focus because everything is moving too fast. Roman Reigns starts backing up slightly at one point, not because he's retreating, but because he's reassessing. That's the real key here. When Roman slows down, it's because he's thinking several steps ahead. And that alone tells you how serious this situation is becoming. Jacob Fatu and Bronson Reed are no longer just reacting. They're standing together in a way that feels almost aligned. Not officially. Not spoken. But understood in that silent wrestling language where one nod or one step forward says more than a full promo ever could. Now the big question starts forming louder in the crowd and online at the same time. Is Bronson Reed protecting Jacob Fatu, or is he positioning himself next to a rising force before it becomes uncontrollable? Because those are two very different stories. And WWE never lets moments like this exist without consequences later. Roman Reigns eventually pulls back just enough to reset the situation, but you can tell this isn't over. Not even close. This is one of those segments that feels less like an ending and more like the first.